let's jump right into this. Have you ever spent months, maybe even years, just pouring your energy into mastering a new skill, only to feel like you're literally spinning your tires in the mud? We've all been there. It's a huge, universal pain point. You put in the effort, you do the work, but the information? It just won't stick. You study, you practice, but then after a few weeks, it's almost like your brain is actively rejecting the new information, right? It's incredibly frustrating. And honestly, you might start to think, well, maybe I just don't have the intellectual capacity for this. But here is the really fascinating truth. It's not a capacity issue at all. It's actually an emotional engagement issue. And that brings us to the core solution we're breaking down in today's explainer. We're looking at a framework developed by the leading neurobiology researcher, Dr. Elena Vance. She's essentially mapped out what she calls the emotional circuit of rapid learning. And by leveraging what she refers to as your brain's natural grain, she found that you can actually learn up to 4 times faster than the average person. 4 times! So how exactly are we going to do this? Let's walk through her 4-step biological roadmap.
Starting with step 1, finding your brain's grain.
Okay, before we can accelerate your learning, we have to do a little bit of what Dr. Vance calls the archaeology of the self. Because look, every single one of us is born with incredibly unique genetic wiring. It's a unique set of neural circuits that are hypersensitive to very specific types of stimuli. For some people, it's words and language. For others, it's kinetic, physical movement, or even understanding invisible forces like math or physics. To find yours, you really need to think back to when you were about 4 or 5 years old. What were those early seeds of delight? What activities gave you that visceral, physical sense of joy? Those are your impulse voices, and they dictate exactly how your brain prefers to receive information. Okay, let's dive into this comparison. Think about what happens when we ignore that wiring. If you try to learn a skill that goes against your grain, it's literally like an amphibian trying to fly. No way around it, you're going to experience massive friction, complete boredom, and eventually failure. But when you find that little wedge of the landscape that actually aligns with your childhood impulses, you are suddenly swimming with the current. Rapid acquisition becomes almost effortless because, well, you're working with your biology, not fighting against it. Which brings us right to step 2, triggering emotional engagement. So once we know our grain, we've got to activate the biological system. And listen, rote repetition alone just isn't going to cut it. When you are genuinely emotionally invested in a subject, this vital link fires up between your amygdala, which is your emotional center, and your hippocampus, your memory and learning center. This connection is an absolute game changer. It triggers high-speed neuroplasticity. It basically forces your brain to move past what Dr. Vance calls the false sublime, those quick, cheap distractions, and pushes you deep into the real sublime of creative immersion. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the practical difference it highlights. Think about the massive contrast between trying to learn French in a boring classroom versus being literally dropped into a foreign city. Classroom repetition is what we call dead thinking. It completely lacks genuine urgency. But imagine having to learn French in exactly 1 month just to survive in Paris, or maybe to connect deeply with a new romantic partner. Your brain learns at a massive, massive acceleration because the necessity is real. The emotion literally forces the neuroplasticity.
So, at this point, we've found our grain and we've triggered that initial engagement. But let's be real, what happens when that initial motivation fades and binge-watching Netflix starts looking really, really appealing? To keep the momentum going, we need a way to manufacture that survival necessity on demand. We need to understand the concept of barometric pressure.
And that is step 3, entering death ground. If you find yourself continually putting things off, it's pretty simple. You lack barometric pressure. Enter death ground. This is a concept where you create such high-stakes urgency that your brain is literally forced to release a potent cocktail of dopamine and adrenaline. When your back is truly against the wall, you suddenly find this insane energy and focus that you never even knew you possessed. It is absolutely the ultimate cure for procrastination because your neurobiology kicks into high gear. It goes straight into survival mode to help you move mountains. So how do we actually manufacture this? Well, you can totally fake death ground pressure in your daily life. Check out this rapid-fire toolkit. First up, set strict deadlines with real painful consequences if you miss them. We're not talking soft, easily movable goals here. Second, remove your plan B. If there is absolutely no safety net to fall back on, your brain recognizes that failure is simply not an option, and that forces you to engage fully with the skill you're trying to acquire. And the payoff for this is huge. When you successfully manufacture this urgency, you hit what we call the second wind.
This is a profound neurobiological reward where your focus becomes so incredibly intense that 3 hours of deep, grueling work feels like maybe 30 minutes. By putting yourself on death ground, you discover this deep well of neural energy that simply wasn't accessible back when you were comfortable.
Let's move to and see how this builds. We've got grain, engagement, and death ground. Now we are totally ready for the final and, honestly, most crucial step of internalization. This is where we make the skill a permanent part of who we are.
Step 4. Practicing alive thinking.
This is where you fundamentally shift your brain's wiring. See, dead thinking is merely absorbing the ideas of others and just mimicking them. It's rote memorization, and it fades really quickly. Alive thinking, on the other hand, that involves taking an idea, reflecting deeply on it, and putting it through your own unique lens. You wrestle with the information until it stops being someone else's thought and actually becomes a permanent structural part of your own mental architecture. Now, for the focused learner in our modern world, we have a massive trap right here. You absolutely must avoid the magic of instant AI answers. I know, it is incredibly tempting to just have the work done for you instantly, but relying on instant answers completely robs you of the vital struggle. It's the anxiety, the friction, and those really hard-earned aha moments that literally rewire your brain and drive that neuroplasticity we talked about earlier. And this brilliantly illustrates a core philosophy from Dr. Vance. She says, the journey itself is what creates the superior destination. The friction and the struggle, they aren't roadblocks to your learning. They are the actual mechanics of mastery. Put simply, if you bypass the struggle, you bypass the learning. Okay, let's bring this all together. Here is your complete biological roadmap to rapid skill acquisition. Step 1, find your brain's grain so you're actually swimming with the current. Step 2, trigger emotional engagement to tell your brain that this information actually matters. Step 3, put yourself on death ground to manufacture that survival urgency. And finally, step 4, practice alive thinking to permanently wire the knowledge right into your mind. This is exactly how you stop killing time and start truly mastering whatever it is you set out to do. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to really ponder today. Are you swimming with your brain's current, or are you just killing time? Take a hard, honest look at the next difficult skill you want to learn and challenge yourself to fundamentally change how you approach it using this neurobiological roadmap. Harness your emotions, find your grain, and just watch your ability to learn absolutely skyrocket.